of you might remember David Koger. He was hard to miss, standing at 6 feet 8 inches on a prosthetic leg. He competed against our own Mike Judy in 2011 at the Area 42 Humorous Speech Contest, and his pun-laden speech about his fake leg had the audience rollicking. He visited Central Florida facilitators on several occasions and even served as a chief judge at last year's Humorous Speech Contest. It was 1 year ago today that David Koger died, suddenly and unexpectedly, of unknown causes in the middle of the night. He was 33 years old. David was a close friend of Stephen and Susan, as well as their children, Richard, Philip, Eric, Tristan, and Emma. The kids actually knew him better by his online handle, Shadow Dragon. Other friends of his knew him by another handle, Crimson Conundrum. Did I get that right? Say that real fast. His death was a great shock to everyone, and the grieving has been deep and long. Stephen spoke at his funeral a year ago. Tonight, in David's honor, he presents that eulogy again. Please welcome Advanced Toastmaster Gold, Stephen Morgan will shine.
David, when you were asked, what happens when you miss a saving throw? That was not a request for a demonstration. You and I are alike in so many ways, including a very geeky and twisted sense of humor. That's why I knew you'd get a kick out of that joke. But don't kick with your left leg. It might fly off and hit someone in the face. Again. How ridiculous was it that the government told you that your condition was only temporary? It was fun how you kept wondering aloud when your leg was going to grow back. You opened that into an entire speech of unladen, self-deprecating humor that inspired us all. I want to thank you again. When Susan and I started our new Toastmasters Club, you jumped in, or should I say hopped in, eager to participate, and you took on the role of president and helped our baby grow. Thank you so much for helping to bring our dream to fruition. David, do you remember when we first met at Buca de Beppo's over in Maitland? It was just a simple social gathering, and as usual, my wife Susan and I were talking about hypnosis and giving small demonstrations. That caught your attention, and you pulled up a chair. Your passion and fascination with hypnosis equal to my own, and that was only the first of many. Turns out you like comic books and Dungeons and Dragons and computer games. So do I. We both have strange views on life and spirituality and on relationships, and our views were the same. We are both protectors of those we loved and rescuers of those we thought we could help. We both seek to make others' lives better. Now that I've met your family, I understand better why we are so much alike. We have the same energy and personalities where I was growing up. We were both the eldest child, both eager for respect and responsibility, both bullied by peers, and both of us determined to make our own way. That we picked up the same interests meant we learned the same information. We identified with the same subcultures, and we both had the same competitive streak. Admit it, David, you loved finding someone who could match you in board games, but you were so frustrated. For that first month or two, you could not beat me. So frustrated, in fact, that when you finally won your first game against me, you actually jumped up, yelling and cheering and gloating. I wish I'd recorded that, because I must say that, David, you sure know how to gloat. I remember often how you talked about Lou and how dear she was to you. When I met her, I learned why. I wish she could be here, and so does she, but she did ask me to share her tribute. So to David from Lou, the phrase gentle giant gets overused a lot, but it often seemed to me like it was invented just for you. You are the most kind-spirited, gentle, protective, goofy, geeky, amiable man I've ever met. intensely curious about the world, always ready to believe the best about people, and almost impossible to persuade otherwise. You weren't ambitious in traditional ways. Your aspirations were to spend time doing the things you were passionate about and to make the people you loved as happy as possible. You were passionate about so many things, and yet I never got tired of seeing you snicker and rub your hands together when something got you especially tickled. Or how you were consistently hilarious but couldn't actually tell a joke. And how you knew you didn't have the greatest voice in the world but sang in the car at the top of your lungs anyway. You always wanted to be responsible, self-sufficient, truthful, and understanding. You weren't always successful, but who is? But you were almost always motivated by concern and affection. We had plenty of rough times. You were stubborn and impulsive, and I'm volatile and sharp-tongued. But your default mode was always, we can work this out. I think the angriest you ever got at me was that one time when I kicked your ass at Munchkin, but your real lasting anger was against those who, in your opinion, wronged anyone you cared about. Thank you for all the people in my life because of you. Thank you for your sometimes irritating persistence at perceiving me as the person I have the potential to be, instead of the flawed person that I am. Thank you for your strength and dedication in keeping us connected across the distance. You had room in your heart for everyone, and yet you made me feel like that heart was all mine. The memory and example of that strength, that dedication, that open heart is what will have to keep all of us strong now that you're out of reach. Susan and me and our 5 children love playing Dungeons and Dragons, and it was so entertaining how excited you got arranging and conducting a campaign for us. Your D&D withdrawal must have been pretty bad, but you certainly made sure to get your fix. And what wonderful storytelling skills you used. Grandiose and entertaining. Better than any movie, TV show, computer game, or book. Do you know how much the kids loved playing? When they arrived for summer break, they kept asking, when is Shadow coming? When is Shadow coming? It's funny, they know you as Shadow Dragon better than as David. But their clamoring was so persistent that Susan asked, did you come here to see Mommy or to see Shadow? You gave us each heroic feats to be proud of. Eric as the mage Menrigan, dissolving trolls in orbs of acid. Emma as the pixie Tara Rose, who immolated the petrifying cockatrices. Myself as the dominating cleric Cor, who smote the evil demons invading the orphanage. Richard as the martial artist monk Rysak, who crushed the treacherous insectoid Kimiko with his bare hands. Susan is the awful good paladin, Lady at Dawn, who with one blow felled the evil cult's leader by cleaving her in half. Tristan as the formidable ranger, Thalman, whose arrows rip out goblin hearts at 100 yards. And then Philip as the impulsive rogue Rayloff, who oh so stealthily fumbled into exposing our sneak attack. By the way, Shadow, that first question from the kids when we told them of your passing was, how are we going to play Dungeons and Dragons now? I should smite you with your own leg for that. It's got to be at least a +2 butt-kicking weapon, right? I know you should send us a quest to find the Bigby's authoritative foot spell. You might as well get something out of it for yourself. David, I'll be forever grateful that you were there when my life fell apart. You became the anchor to hold me down, the shield to protect Susan, and the true friend and confidant we both needed. In my darkest hour, you stayed with me, talking, listening, and understanding. When the swords of deceit sought to harm me, you had my back. When the swords threatened you, you recognized the traitors for the cowards they were. You did not fight for justice, you sought to protect. As I wandered the incredibly difficult road out of those dark lands, you were there for me when I stumbled. You had been on this road before. You'd been to that black place before. You had been betrayed before. You knew the burden I bore, and you helped me bear that burden. That, David, is your noblest quality. You will bear any burden for the ones you love. Then there is your pride. You do not wish to burden anyone else, even though we all have burdens to bear, and we all have burdens to share. I'm grateful that I could help with your burdens too. It was July 2011 when you fell ill and ended up in the hospital. When I realized you had no one you could call on for help or even for company, I said to Susan, that's not right. The hospital's only 3 miles away. We can keep them company. And Susan and my son Richard and I did just that. We brought Sellers and Catan, and we discovered another shared passion, board games. When you got out of the hospital, you were not allowed to drive. You had daily follow-up appointments by the hospital. You lived a good 30 to 40 minutes away by car. I told you to use our guest room. We can easily get you your appointments. You protested. What a strange power struggle we had then. Both of us gentle and generous healers by nature, and both of us headstrong. In the end, I had to make the argument clear. You can't drive, and you don't have anyone else you can depend on to drive you. So you're staying here until the doctor says you are ready. What can I say? You didn't have a leg to stand on. I'm so glad that you did stay, David. You were never a burden in any way, and we got to know each other quite well. I just saw yesterday a status you had put on Facebook a couple of years ago. It said, Iron Man 2 this Saturday. I would drive a steamroller through a field of babies to get to that movie. It reminded me of when you and Susan and I went to the Avengers Marathon on opening day. 6 movies in a row. My butt was numb midway through the 3rd movie. By the end, I was jacked up on caffeine and popcorn. It was a comic book geek fest. No wonder we had such a blast. Over the past 7 weeks, you chose to spend a lot of your free time with me and my family. You ran me and Susan and the kids through a couple D&D campaign adventures. You came over several times to play board games. You helped my other Toastmasters club with its speech contest. You came to see Richard's basketball team win the championship game. And you made a detour simply to help him move the television. I also helped you move into your new apartment, thereby getting the most intense workout I've had in years. You took me and Kelly to your mom's favorite Chinese restaurant, and Richard and I had the privilege to accompany you to visit your dad and sister for the day. You told me how excited you were to be starting another D&D campaign with your coworkers. You were finally settling into your new apartment. I also experienced watching football with you for the first time. We watched the last couple Florida Gator games, both of us being alumni and all. I have to say, though, giving you and your competitive streak a football game to watch is a transformative experience. Our gentle giant morphs into hyper-psycho sadist. Out comes scream of, "Maim him, kill him, punish him for every inch!" All shouted with a sinister grin, a furrowed brow, and squinting eyes that make your face glow like the evil scientist who finally stands triumphant. We are so much alike, you and I. We both are avid about hypnosis, Toastmasters, comic books, board games, role-playing games. Both healers and protectors and rescuers. We've carried each other's burdens and cheered each other to success. We have learned how similarly we each perceive relationships, love, and life. And now, my dear friend, your life has reached its end. Too suddenly, too young, too many questions. You, sir, have left us a rather large conundrum, a rather large crimson conundrum. David, I'm the lucky one here today. I got to spend the last 6 weekends with you, and I've enjoyed every one. These past 2 weekends, you were clearly more happy, relaxed, and content than I had ever seen you. So many of your friends and family are grieving. So many of us are shocked, scared, and angry. I'm sure you are saying over and over, I'm so sorry. So David, let me give you a piece of your own advice. You're not sorry, you're awesome. It is because you're awesome that we suffer. It is because you are awesome that we are here. It is because you are awesome that our lives are so much better for having been touched by you. It was 2 weeks ago you told me you got gut checked by a quote. You can measure the qualities of a man by how he treats someone who can offer him nothing. By that measure, sir, you are the supreme, top-notch, penultimate, supercharged, and of course giant-sized hunk of a man. David, it was just 3 weeks ago that you had told me I was your best friend. I am proud to call you friend. I am honored and humbled to be called your friend. For all the long talks, for all the fun and games, and for all the good and bad times. We love you, we miss you, and we thank you. Now, Shadow Dragon, leap to both feet and take flight. Speed across the sky, soar to the highest heights. Drink in the warmth of the sun. Spread your wings and cast your shadow across the land. Ascend to the stars and let your heart and soul shine, brighter than all the heavens. Shine as a harbinger of hope. Shine as a beacon of love. Shine that none of us need ever fear the shadows.